Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the San Mateo Public Library. My name is Adriana Valencia and this is Kitchen Science. And I'm really excited to bring to you guys another edible science. And so for this video, we are going to be focusing on marshmallows. So if you have marshmallows at home, go ahead and pull them out. I'm going to show you how to make your own marshmallows, and then we're going to talk about what happens to marshmallows when you microwave them. So if you haven't done that before, it's pretty fun. One thing I do want to let you guys know is I will be using gelatin in this video, and I will be linking in the description box a recipe that uses a vegan substitute, specifically agar powder. But this video will focus on using gelatin, which is animal-based. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick disclaimer. Another element is if you are going to be making your marshmallows at home, you will want to use either a stand mixer or a handheld mixer. I was very fortunate that I had a blender, but I needed to make a covering for my bowl out of aluminum foil, so that's why I'm including that in my list of ingredients, because when I first made it and I submerged my whisk into the hot sugar and the gelatin and turned it on, it exploded and got everywhere. So it became a really, really big mess of sugar just everywhere. So I did want to give you guys a quick warning. You cannot hand whisk this. It won't turn out the same because you need an electric whisk in order to do it, so that it really beats that air into the mixture and makes it nice and thick and fluffy. The fluffier you have it, the squishier your marshmallow and the more melt in the mouth goodness it will be. So make sure that you have one of those things. If you're not using a standing mixer, make sure that you make some type of lid over it, because it really will get everywhere, and we're using hot sugar, okay? And also for the recipe, you wanna make sure that an adult is the one cooking the sugar, because we are making it go up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will burn you if you get hurt with it, if it touches you. So make sure that an adult is doing that part and you have your adult permission to do that portion of this video. But for the microwaving bit, as long as you have permission to use a microwave, you should be good. All right, let's get to it. Alrighty, so here are our supplies. First, I'm gonna go through the ingredients and then we'll do the tools. So for ingredients, you're gonna need 2 cups of granulated sugar, about 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, about a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. You're gonna need 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. You're going to need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I used up all my salt, so I don't have any extra. And then you'll need about 3 envelopes of the gelatin. And this is unflavored gelatin, and each envelope is about 1 tablespoon. For tools, some things that I don't have here, you're going to need 1 large bowl, or if you're using a stand-up mixer, you can use the bowl from your mixer. You're gonna need some type of stirring instrument to stir the hot sugar, measuring spoons and measuring cups, because you'll need some water. That's also something I didn't include in the ingredients. So you need cold water and room temperature water. You'll need plastic wrap to cover your marshmallows for when they set. And if you don't have a stand-up mixer and you're using an electric hand mixer, or if you're using an immersion blender, which is what I'm using here, this is the attachment, you want to make sure that you create a dome over a large bowl where you're going to mix, so that it doesn't splatter all over the room, which is what happened to me. So I have your aluminum foil so you can make a dome to cover your bowl. And then the last item that you need is a large pan. You can use a 9x9 cooking pan, baking pan, or you can use a cookie sheet that has at least a 1-inch lip if you want to make thin marshmallows and small marshmallows. And you'll want to grease that pan with something. If you have cooking spray, you can use that. You can also use unsalted butter. And then you're going to want to dust that with your confectioner sugar. And so I'll show you that in the next steps. All right, you will want to grease a pan and then dust it with confectioner sugar, so it's nice and fine. You can also make this a mix of confectioner sugar with cornstarch, so it's not uber sweet. Here you've mixed 3 tablespoons of the gelatin in the 1/2 cup of cold water, and you're just going to let that sit while you do your next step. Next, you're going to mix your 2 cups of sugar with your 1/4 cup of water and your 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You're going to put that in a small saucepan and you're going to bring that to a boil. This is a great time if you have a candy thermometer to put the candy thermometer inside, and you're gonna heat it up until it reaches 240 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you're going to remove from heat and immediately pour that into your standing mixer or your large bowl. Don't forget to stir your mixture to make sure that it's fully incorporated. So if you're using a really small saucepan, you might want to have someone help you, or make sure that you have an adult doing this, because it does get very hot and you could get burned. Here's my mixture. I beat it using a immersion blender whisk attachment, so it's not as thick as I would want it to be. In the last couple spins of the whisk attachment, I added the half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So if you're doing this at home and you have a stand-up mixer, that's your best bet. If you don't, but you have an immersion blender with the whisk attachment, you can definitely do it. It's very, very loud, and that's actually the real reason why I couldn't make it as fluffy as I needed to. And now we're just gonna pour it into our dusted and greased pan. Okay, now your last prep step before you just have to wait for the marshmallow to set is to dust it with some more confectioner sugar and a cornstarch mix. And so that's what I'm gonna keep doing until the whole top cover is covered. And then I'm gonna wrap it in some plastic wrap, and we're just gonna let it set for a couple hours. All right, so now here is my homemade marshmallow, and I have to let it set for 4 hours to overnight. If you're doing it at home, I would really encourage you to leave it alone overnight so that it has enough time to set properly. And we're gonna go straight into using regular marshmallows. So if you have regular marshmallows at home, mini size, jumbo size, Peeps, go ahead and pull them out. All right, for our science experiment that you can easily do at home, all you'll need is a microwave safe plate, a microwave, and then some marshmallows. If you have different sized marshmallows, that's even better. And if you have any Peep marshmallows that are really popular during Easter time, those are really fun to use. So what I'd like you guys to do first is look at your marshmallows. Touch them, feel them, even taste them. Think about words that you would use to describe your marshmallow. They can be pretty firm, they can be squishy, they can feel fluffy. Are they powdery? Do they feel like they're a solid, or do they feel like they're a liquid? And so an example of a solid would be this plate. It's solid, and water would be liquid. So after you've put in some thought and you've compared your marshmallows to different things, go ahead and put one marshmallow on your plate, and then we're gonna put this in the microwave. Alrighty, so the marshmallow's on the plate in the microwave. You're gonna wanna make sure that it somewhat stays in the middle of your plate, and then you're going to set your microwave to 30 seconds. So here I have my microwave on, and I want you to just pay attention to that little marshmallow. What's happening? Did you see it get bigger? So I'm gonna go ahead and stop it for now. That was 15 seconds. And it looks like it inflated a little bit. And now that it stopped receiving heat, it deflated. Let's compare with marshmallows. So it looks like it's back to roughly normal size. So it did deflate a little bit. So it looks like I might have to be a little quicker since these are mini marshmallows. And if I'm touching it, it's pretty warm to touch, but it's a lot softer. It definitely feels like it was heated up. So I'm gonna eat this one. I'm gonna start fresh with a new marshmallow. Let's see. All right, so I have the new marshmallow in, and this time I only have it for 15 seconds. And it looks like it got bigger again, so let me pause, do this quickly. And it looks like it deflated a little bit slower this time, because it looks like it's still bigger than the mini marshmallow, which is exactly what I wanted to show you. So if you have jumbo marshmallows or those Peep marshmallows, this is an even better science experiment to do, because you'll see those get really, really big. But since these are minis, they don't get that big, but it's still pretty fun to see. So we're gonna do just one more example. This is still a little warm. I'm gonna let that cool down. And I'm just gonna put a small handful. Sorry for such a shaky recording. Let's pull this one off. As you can see, it's already started to melt. I'm gonna eat that. All right, so now I have here a mini handful. We're gonna put it back in. Try to make sure that they stay somewhat in the middle. All right. So now I've started microwaving them again. I set it for 30 seconds, but I'm probably gonna stop it before it gets to 30 seconds. Do you see how they've expanded? And it almost looks like they turned into one big fluffy cloud. Let's pause it and see what it looks like. Ah! You got to see it. It did. It started looking like a cloud. And now that I've turned it off and it's cooling, it's contracting, meaning it's coming back together and squishing together. But you can definitely see that something happened because they started to melt. So they definitely felt some heat. So now, after you've done this a couple times and you feel pretty satisfied, think about how you would describe these marshmallows after they've been in the microwave. Are they still firm or are they more squishy? What about their taste? Do they taste the same or do they taste different? Are they a solid or are they a liquid? What do you think? And then make those observations and ask your family members what they think. And then we'll explain the science behind it. All right. Now that you've had a couple chances to play with your marshmallows using the microwave, let's talk about what really happened. So first we have to think about what is inside of the marshmallow. And that's why we started the video with a recipe for how to make your own marshmallows. You can pretty much summarize that inside of a marshmallow, there are 4 main things: water, sugar, air, and gelatin. And so I used a gelatin-based recipe. There are recipes that are designed for vegan families, and that's using agar powder as a substitute, which is equally as good. And I will link that into our description box. But for the most part, this marshmallow is made out of those 4 main things. And so if you think about those 4 main things individually and think about how they come together to make this marshmallow, you can sort of start describing the marshmallow the way that we did before. So we know that it's fluffy and squishy, and that's partially because of the air that's whipped inside. We know that it's a solid. We also know that if you peel it apart and wet it, it gets sticky, right? Yeah. So now think about the marshmallows that we put in the microwave. So I let this cool, and I've been eating it, so that's why it's not full. But now that it's fully cooled, touch that marshmallow. Now it's hard and it's crunchy. It doesn't feel the same as our original marshmallow. And that's because we made it go through a physical change. So when we heated it up in the microwave, something happened. And those 4 main ingredients didn't necessarily change, but they went away. And that changed the marshmallow. So when you cause something to heat up and it has water, what happens to water when it gets really, really hot? It evaporates, right? Yeah. So like when you boil something and if you boil it too much, the water goes away, or when it rains and the water falls to the floor, it evaporates and goes back up. Same thing. So here, when we heated up our marshmallows, the water inside of the marshmallows started heating up, and that meant they started moving really fast. All of those water molecules, or those H2O molecules, started moving so fast that they were vibrating, and building bubbles inside of this marshmallow shell. And that shell was made out of the sugar and the gelatin. And so that's how we saw the marshmallow expand and almost like inflate like a balloon, because all of that hot air was vibrating so much and creating bubbles and creating hot air that it expanded. But the moment that it stopped being heated and began to cool, so the moment that the microwave turned off and we opened the door, it started to deflate, almost like when you pop a balloon. Yeah. And all that we were left with was the sugar and the gelatin. And so that's why it's hard and crunchy, because now there's very little amounts of water and very little amounts of air left in here. So these you can't even squish down. They are so hard. But the regular ones, you can squish till they're pretty flat because you're pressing out all the air. But it doesn't make this marshmallow any less delicious. It's just more crunchy. Now let's see what happens to the marshmallows that we made earlier. All right, so here is a piece of the marshmallow we made. And it's pretty thick, it's pretty squishy. Now let's try seeing what happens when we microwave this. Alrighty, so I went ahead and put the marshmallow in the microwave and set it for 30 seconds. So let's see what happens with our homemade marshmallows. And it looks like it does expand. It definitely got bigger. So it looks like this one mostly just melted, and it looks like it definitely had a lot more liquid than the other one because it's definitely more goopy. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Here is a better view, close-up of the marshmallows that I made earlier. And so once again, the recipe will be in the description box. These came out a little sweeter than I wanted. So feel free to change the recipe a little bit to reduce the amount of confectioner sugar you use, because I dusted it quite a bit and I think that really made it too sweet. And if you want to make your own flavored marshmallows, for the half cup of water that you leave blooming, just change that with a flavoring that you'd like. So if you want to use coffee instead, you can use that to replace the water. Or if you have any flavored oils that you're using that are food grade, you can add that when you're mixing your sugar with your gelatin. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check the library's website for any future updates. Bye.